the deep work is where there's value, and people pay for value. So a good example of that is if you are only adding value by posting people's properties on the internet for them, you're not going to get paid much money for that, right? You get paid the proportionate amount of money to the value that you provide. However, if you go to somebody and say, you know what, I think if we do X, Y, and Z, we can make you millions, you can charge whatever you want, right? So what is that deep work in your industry?
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further. Welcome back to Weiss Advice. I am your host, Jonah Weiss. It is a beautiful day, and I'm so pleased to be here together with a wonderful guest, my friend, Mark Jensen, out of Salt Lake City, Utah. A little bit about Mark, just so you guys know who we're talking about here, and go check him out on LinkedIn because you won't be disappointed. He is a leader in the commercial real estate industry, been in the industry for 16 years. Okay, he's not only a broker, but he's a coach. He's a maven. He loves what he does. And he actually hosted me one of the first podcasts that I was a guest on, believe it or not, was Everybody Wins with Mark Jensen. So that was really cool. And it happened to be one of his first episodes also. So it just worked out perfectly. That was a couple years ago. Like I said, in the commercial real estate business in Salt Lake City, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but your team is now the number one multifamily team in Salt Lake City.
From a transaction volume standpoint, we do more multifamily transactions in the market than any other team. By volume, we're probably not the biggest because we don't do all the big deals, but
right, of course,
we do most of the deals. So yes, and I'm grateful to be on. Yona, for you to call me a friend is just like it just warmed my chest, dude. It gave me chills. Yona, I've been lucky enough to know Yona for many, many years now. I'm grateful to be a part of his tribe. So thank you so much for having me on, Yona.
Yeah, I'm grateful for finally being able to meet in person back in January. You know, that was an awesome conference. It was kind of one of the last conferences, before this whole COVID thing took over the world. That was huge. That was awesome.
That was crazy. What was funny is one of the best things to come out of that conference was one of my clients said, you know what? I'm going to start a new fund. And I was like, yeah, what's your thesis? Like, what are you going to go do? And he's like, my thesis is going to be solely based on the attendance of NMHC. He was like, because when I was here in 2011, there was like 6 of us. And now there's like 4,000 people in Orlando. Yeah. He's like, now's the time to sell. And it wasn't 60 days later that, COVID hit and the market tanked. I was like, that's kind of actually an interesting thesis. It might actually work.
Right. It's crazy how so many things can change so quickly overnight. And I mean, you being in the real estate business and you've been in it and you were, through the last downturn, right? Back in 2008, 2009, what similarities are you seeing right now? And, for your business, and obviously not necessarily in real estate in general, but just from a business perspective and from how you're dealing with it. And what kind of new things are you seeing that are going to help you and your team push through?
Yeah, great question. And I'm a weirdo because I love change. I mean, the worst part about the last 8, 9, 10 years has been it's been a great market. So people thought the only place I added value was when I pitched a listing. It's like, well, we're also talking to CBRE and Marcus and Millichap and JLL and my cousin Steve. And it's like, okay, well, I'm kind of different than that. Like, you hire me because I get stuff done and I've been through it all and I know how to grind and do the hard work. But
yeah, Mark's with Colliers International, by the way. I forgot to mention that. Just a little shout out there.
But in 2009 and 10, we talked a little bit earlier when we were bantering, like, you have to reinvent yourself. You have to pivot. One thing that I think is, clearly different about this is it affected all industries at the same time, right? I mean, in 2009 and 10, that was solely real estate. We saw a lot of people bail out of the business. We had a lot of people that had great business models and great business plans from, when I started in 2004 all the way to 2008 and 2009 that really had to pivot and either clean up what they, solve some problems that they had. They just weren't in a position to really move forward. We were talking about I almost had to reinvent myself and change my clientele because the friends I had gained from '04 to 2009, they weren't in position to go transact and build their portfolios and whatever, solve other people's problems. They were solving their own. So I love change. I think right now is such an incredible opportunity for entrepreneurs. I mean, you've seen plenty of LinkedIn posts about all the great companies that were started in 2008, 9, and 10.
Yeah.
We're going to see a lot of garage companies here. I've been really frustrated because I know in March of 2021, we're going to be reading about the COVID, millionaires and billionaires that just caught trends early or came up with a great idea or finally had the time to, pivot, change, implement, do something different. So, I mean, I think right now is incredible. 2008 and 9 was really slow too. I don't think I realized that, we were out of the recession until, January when I saw you, now all of a sudden we're kind of, back in sort of a calibration, if you will, or recalibrating the markets, but great opportunities right now for sure.
No, I think you're totally right. Right now, for everyone listening, this is the time. Now is the time. Maybe a few months ago was the beginning of the time, but this is still the time to think outside the box and try to do something different. That side hustle that you had or thought about starting, put more time into that because you have no idea where the opportunity is going to land and where it's going to come from. I know a lot of people are hurting now. A lot of people are out of work. The real estate market is taking a huge hit, right? There's not transaction. I mean, there are, but the volume has gone down tremendously. And maybe by the end of the year, maybe by the fourth quarter, maybe by 2021, it's going to pick back up. Who knows? No one really knows. We're hoping, but you got to change. You got to find different things to do. Part of the reason why, we're starting Weiss Advice finally after a year of talking about it. And part of the reason why we started this commercial real estate virtual meetup that we're doing every Wednesday night. So that's also a really cool thing that came out of this.
Absolutely. I don't want to discount, let me back up. I don't want to discount that COVID has been awful.
Yeah.
People are hurting, people are dying. We have family members that have passed away from COVID. So it's extremely close to home. However, I want to keep things very positive because all we can do is focus on, where we are right now and kind of move forward. And a lot of young brokers have called and said oh man, I entered the business at the wrong time. It's what? Are you kidding me? You entered at the perfect time because now it leveled the playing field in the commercial real estate space, right? I don't care if you're a buyer, if you're a developer, if you're a city, if you're, a broker, because right now you have time and you have hustle. And that's the same thing that I have as a broker that's been in the business for 16 years and done plenty of transactions and volume, but I'm making the same calls you're making. How are you? What can I do to help you? What are you seeing? Where can I add value? What are our next moves? Are we solving problems? Are we looking for opportunities? And if you're the one picking up the phone, calling those people, that's your relationship at that moment, and they will answer the phone right now. That is an incredible opportunity, I think, for a lot of people. So.
100%. Building relationships, really, that's, in my opinion, that's what it's all about. And that's what business is all about. That's why we're so big on LinkedIn, because not just for this kind of social media and putting out content, that's really not what it's about. That's a means, to get to the end of meeting amazing people like me and Mark that we met through LinkedIn and building those relationships that build to actual real business transactions and real, putting money in the bank, which in the end of the day, that's what we're here to provide for our families. We're here to make the world a better place and do that in our own way.
Yeah. And I think that people don't understand. I mean, you've talked many times about make social media social. Mm-hmm. And I think people get on there and they're like, okay, well, I'm going to post something cool and then it's going to get a bunch of likes and then I'm going to, whatever, it's going to come back right away. That's not the goal. I mean, like you said, the goal is relationships and figure out how you can add value and help them and they can help you. And I mean, I told Yona when we first got on here, I trust Yona. One, he's a proven entity. Two, I've now known him for multiple years. And I know that I can call on him if I have needs or if he needs something or has a question. It's not about money,
Absolutely.
It's about trust and respect and love and, working together and doing the work. I think that one thing that we lack in society is everyone's looking for that quick fix. You think Yona is a quick fix? Bro's been on LinkedIn every day since, he started growing that beard. So.
Right. These white hairs were not here before. This is a long game. Social media and business in general is a long game. You're in there for the long run. Don't expect to see returns immediately. It's like one of my great teachers used to tell me, it's the same thing and both of us are very spiritual people in our own ways. You want to have a spiritual, relationship with God or whatever being that you believe in. It doesn't happen overnight. There's work that really needs to be involved there. And the liking of that is like back in the old days, my teacher, he's an old man and my rabbi, and he used to tell me that in the old days, women, I hope no one gets offended by this, but being overweight was actually considered more attractive, like back in the 1940s, 50s, 30s. Yeah. And he said women actually used to like drink cream, right, in order to put on extra pounds. So he's like, the analogy is like drinking that cream and like pinching yourself to see if you put on any weight yet, right? So the same idea, right? Putting out that social, and that's a really weird analogy, but that's just what popped in my head. But the idea is, you're not going to do something and right away see the results. This is planting seeds and doing it consistently over time.
Yeah, and I think it's an important note because, I almost am glad that I was raised and grew up when I grew up and entered business when I entered business. You have to be grateful for the cards that you're dealt no matter what, right? Like that's, attitude is the one thing that you can control. But, so many of the young people, they want to start an app or they want to, they'll call me and literally ask me about the commercial real estate business with the sole purpose of like starting some software as a service thing, but they have no experience in the real estate space, which is totally fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. However, what are the odds and chances that you're going to create something that's going to scale and get funding around A and B and C, and then you're going to go public in 11 years for $1 billion? It's like, I think people miss out. Like one of my friends, he's one of the hardest working guys I've ever met. He's a roofing contractor. And you won't see him on LinkedIn. You won't see him on social media. He's not creating software as a service. He goes and works his butt off every single day, and he's super successful, runs a great business. And I think people are moving away from that because they see Instagram, they see, all these people that they think, success happened overnight, but that's not how it happens. It's one brick at a time, baby. Just like the bricks behind you.
That's right. You know how long it took me to lay those bricks, Mark?
But anyway, I'm getting off topic here. Hard work is there, but the tools today too, right? Like, we didn't have these tools 15 years ago when I started in the business. Like I had a phone and a phone book, and now I sound like the guys that trained and mentored me, but you still have to do the work. No one's going to hand it to you. But with modern technology and ideas and mind share with guys like Yona, it's just fun because you can take one conversation and literally build a business out of it by just implementing and doing the work. So that's where I crave these types of podcasts and discussions. I'm going to take this into my day and we're going to go figure out how to make money and be successful and provide value and do it the right way. I'm not short selling companies. I'm not, calling brokers saying, hey, send me your distressed deals. It's like my whole career has been built on providing value, building value, creating places. I joke that one of the books I read recently was Adapt by Blaine Strickland. And I was super pumped because he calls real estate space as a service. That's the SaaS that we're supposed to be focused on. It's like, booyah. That just sounded so cool because that's what real estate is. It's a service, and what is that space doing to serve your clients, your tenants, your communities, all that fun stuff. So SaaS, that's my SaaS.
That's so cool. Your SaaS. You got to get the hashtag, space as a service.
Space as a service. They'll be like, what is that? Is that Elon Musk's new company?
Right. Space. It's a different type of space, right?
I think way smaller than Elon. One of my buddies the other day, Utah has some pretty incredible leaders. I'm pretty lucky to have some pretty good relationships with some total hitters that just have that mindset and attitude and commitment and hardworking mentality. But he posted a video the other day. His name's Justin Prince, and he's a great guy, pretty active on social media. He's actually the founder of a very large multi-level marketing company here called Modera. Okay. I'm not in it. Don't worry about it. You don't need to worry about getting in my downline. I missed that boat. But Justin posted the coolest thing the other day because he was basically like, here I am. I'm leading this company. We just had our biggest month ever. We've opened up all these countries. And we're providing these amazing products and services to people. And then out of nowhere, this dude's like, you know what? I'm going to colonize Mars. His whole point was like, it's so relative, but you do need to think bigger. You know, if you don't think big, you're going to get stuck in, you know, how do I just scale that next brick? But if you don't know what you're building or where you're headed, you know, I just thought that was such a funny thing to hear a guy that I look up to who's super successful, very well respected in his community, has a wonderful family and life. And here he is just like laughing because Elon Musk just put two dudes into space, you know?
Yeah, that's crazy. So what about right now? Like, you're always like a goal setting person, but you have new goals or different goals now in this time than you did beforehand?
Yeah, I mean, my business has changed. Being a solopreneur where I would call guys and be like, hey, I've got this idea. And then, you know, we kind of link arms and go grab a burrito and start implementing our new strategy and thesis, and we go make money. I mean, my joke is that I'm the most successful private equity firm you'll ever meet that has no assets under management. Because like, or what I tell someone today, I said, I'm the largest hedge fund you'll ever run into, but I don't have any assets. Like, my job is to be the CEO and decide what my hedge fund is going to go work on. Why are we going to work in that space? You know, what are the drivers? Is it growth? Is it change of use? Is it value add? I have to do all this work, and then I actually have to go find the people and talk to the people that own that actual, you know, property into sort of jumping on my hedge fund thesis, and then we go execute. And so in that process,
you are the assets.
Like my mind is what creates the transactions. I wish I had a bunch of money. You know, it's a little bit different because I have to think for people that have money that are, you know, typically way smarter than me. I just happen to be on the front lines and thinking through, like, you know, one of my mentors who passed away, unfortunately, you know, he said that the money's in change of use. And this is really important. And I touch base on this all the time because I've been successful because I transact and people know they can trust me, and I'm really good at math. I wouldn't say I'm really good at math. I'm really good at that next data point, and I know everything about the previous data point. So but he said change of use is where the money's at. So, you know, I say every once in a while that I sort of look for trends and opportunities for my clients to capitalize on. And that's really why we're in the real estate space. I mean, if you knew that no one was renting apartments for the next 10 years, you wouldn't buy apartments, right? I mean, real estate is really simple, you know, if you get down to brass tacks. But change of use became interesting to me. So every couple of years, I'll get these trends that are sort of happening or occurring, or, you know, things. I'm always looking for things that we can scale. And I joke because those windows open and close pretty quickly, no different than markets, you know, get strong and they collapse. But, you know, in the mid 2000s, we were converting apartments to condominiums. That's actually how I met this guy. If you look at it, like, condos were selling for like $150,000 and there weren't enough condos. And apartments are selling for $75,000 and there were plenty of apartments. And so he was buying apartments for $85,000, so overpaying. And then he would put about $25,000 into those, and then he'd sell them for, you know, $150,000, and he'd make $50,000 minus fees or whatever. And what was neat about that is that's really where everybody wins came from, is that those are the best transactions. I go to owners and say, hey, you own an apartment building. I want to overpay for it because I want to move it from column A to column B. And most of my career has been built on transparency, right? So the first question those owners have is, well, why don't I do that? And it's like, perfect, I'm glad you asked, because you could. And let me walk you through how you could. But the minute you convert it from an apartment building to condominiums and sell those, that becomes retail product, and you're taxed on a retail basis, which, you know, Yoda Weiss will know a lot more of that than I will. And there's also risk associated with it. You're now a developer. There's loss in cash flow. It's really just a different business model. But here it is, if you want to do it. But typically, I'd say 100% of the time, they would take their, you know, the higher price in their apartments, because then they could 1031 that into something else. And so that was kind of the first trend and opportunity we saw. The second one was in 9 and 10, you know, the hotel industry was doing this and apartments were doing this. And I actually converted a extended stay hotel into multifamily apartments. It was probably one of the most successful projects I've worked on to get paid the least amount of money here. But I wasn't in a position to control the whole thing. It was just like, hey, I wonder if we could do this. I figured out how to do it, sold it to a guy, and he did extremely well. And you're seeing that right now.
Right now as well.
Yeah, you'll see a lot of that. In fact, there's a fund here in Utah they've bought quite a few of that version 1 that I've worked on, because of the layout and the design and whatever. They've bought like 30 of those nationally, and they're doing that in municipalities that will let them do it. So the last one is, we've seen a lot of success in townhomes. And so I've sold a 0.8 acre parcel of ground in a great infill location here in Utah in 2013. And the developer there, who's, a really good friend of mine, ended up building that. I won't give the metrics on the podcast, but he basically tripled the value of every townhome that he built, the whole capital stack. So unlevered 3x, right? Mm-hmm. So I took that model and I went to owners, and similar on the condo conversions, I went to these people that had pieces of property and I said, hey, they're like, we already talked to developers and we don't need you. You're just another realtor. And I always say, I'm not a realtor. They're held to a much higher moral standard. I don't have a pin. I don't have a gold jacket. I'm just Mark Jensen. But I basically said, let me show you this. I just want to tell you a story. And my joke is that I collect friends for a living because, look what I did. We did 6 joint venture projects where they put in no money and they got a 3x on their valuation. If they had sold and moved into a triple net Starbucks or gas station, or, they would be making a little bit of money, but I gave them all that money plus 3 times. And so anyway, I just encourage brokers, play the long game, look for trends and opportunities. The other tagline I tell people when I'm in the elevator is I'm a stockbroker of physical assets, because I really think it's important for investment brokers and real estate brokers in general to understand that we compete with the global markets, whether you like it or not. When we're talking about bearded Brandon and why he's buying, apartments in these cities, he could also take that money and put it into the stock market or a REIT. I used to meet with wealth managers all the time thinking like, hey, one of these days you're going to have a client that wants to allocate into commercial real estate. You know what the first thing they always say? We're already diversified into real estate. We buy REITs.
REIT, yeah, for sure.
Congratulations, but you're missing Yona Weiss, 1031 exchanges. It's like, wow,
you're missing the real wealth building of real estate.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anyway, there's a divide between wealth management and real estate. And there's one firm in Utah that's been super successful because they actually started developing and providing those opportunities to their wealth management clients. And they have now become one of the largest developers in the state, and they have crushed it for their clients. So real estate as a wealth creation vehicle cannot be ignored, my friends.
Not at all. Not at all. So in the light of what we kind of talked about a little before we hit the record button over here, we're always trying to add value in different ways. And I know it sounds like cliche, right? We're adding value, but the truth of the matter is we are, because a lot of times we're doing a lot of work, right? Putting in a lot of effort, trying to help people, point other people in the right direction. In the end of the day, right, there may be transactions that come out of that, maybe not, but that's kind of our effort. And I think we see things on the same wavelength in terms of that, but obviously doing different things. What's the biggest challenge that you see in doing that? Because I know my own challenges in doing that, but do you have challenges in just that kind of model that is different than a lot of other people in your space?
Yeah, I think that my problem is I don't know what my end game is, right? I'm looking for wealthy people that own commercial real estate. And up until maybe like 36 months ago, there was 2 of them on LinkedIn, and they would never check their DMs. Something's definitely changed on LinkedIn. It's crazy.
It is
like
crazy.
The last couple of years have been nuts, and you've done a great job of highlighting that and helping others recognize that. But I think my challenge, I just don't know what my end game is. I've had one deal in, however long I've been on LinkedIn, since 2006, come from LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. But it was the coolest feeling ever, because he called and said, hey, Mark, my wife and I, we own this, I think it was like a 15-unit building. Interestingly enough, it was an apartment building that they started renting by the bed to college students, change of use.
Change of use. Yeah.
So, they said, we've talked to a couple of different people, but I know how your mind works. Like, will you come take a look at this? And it was exactly the type of deal that you need somebody like me, because I know how to capture that and sort of shore up the risk. And anyway, it just was cool. And we ended up, hitting a home run for him. And that came from LinkedIn. So, I can't say that it's not worth it. What I love about LinkedIn, and so the reason I'm as active as I am, is you cannot deny the information you get just by paying attention. Reading the articles, what's important to Yona, what's important to these guys. It all ties together in your ability to execute in your business. That's why it's irreplaceable for me, and it's become such a part of my business plan. However, do I then take my connections and someday I crowdfund deals and opportunities that I know make sense or that are better than market? Do I just don't know what the end game is. I just know that I love it and I enjoy it. It provides value to me because I'm on the front lines for my clients, which ultimately drives value to them. And it's great.
Eventually, something will click at one point. And I agree. That's one of my challenges as well, that I don't necessarily know the end game. And I just keep pushing and doing things, and, great things come about as a indirect result, and also a lot from a direct result for me personally. But yeah, I don't know. Like, people have asked me, hey, you're so good at helping people in LinkedIn, and we do these LinkedIn challenges and like all these people, and everyone's like, why do you charge for this? Like, why don't you like create a LinkedIn like coaching course?
Wasn't it Lewis Howes? Didn't he start by, I forget which book I read. Dude, I've read way too many books the last couple of years, but Lewis Howes, I think, started doing LinkedIn like meetups, and now he's like, his podcast is super successful. I see him with like Lambos and hot chicks and really cool people. And it's like, dang, but I think he started by doing what you do. But what's funny is, from the outside, is I see your end game. Like, it's whatever you decide to implement. You've done such an incredible job. Anybody that's listening to this, we talked about offline before, but do what Yona does and hang out with Yona and you'll be successful. I feel like in a lot of ways, Yona, I think that you're able to probably capture a value add capability faster than somebody like me, because if you're in need of cost segregation, you're known as the cost segregation guy.
Right.
And even if you just educate somebody, eventually they'll need it or know somebody that will need it. I just think that you're in a great position in doing what's right for your business, but you're way bigger than that. So a client of mine a few months ago said, you've transcended brokerage. And I was like, thought that was funny. But then I come back to my office, and in that process, I raise equity for a deal. I know the right lender to put together in this other project. And then I put in a mezz component on a deal where a guy came short on equity, and I'm consulting on a deal in Colorado. And then I'm consulting on a retail redevelopment in Scottsdale, Arizona. It's like, maybe I have transcended brokerage, but you've transcended cost segregation. You've transcended that a long time ago. You add value across so many different verticals. If I honestly, like right now, if I said, hey, Yona, you don't need to answer this, it's kind of rhetorical, but it's like, hey, I've got this great project in Denver. I need to raise $35 million. Like, your first comment wouldn't be like, nope, not my space. I do cost seg. It would be like, I got some ideas, and that's what's great about connectors like you. So,
yeah. And I feel very blessed to have such an incredible network and people that I also, just as a side note, I have a very kind of, I don't know, call it a unique talent, but I'm very grateful that, this kind of God-given talent that I remember people like very well, like names and places and, history, all that kind of stuff. So like immediately, like things connect in my mind. That's why I like to be, the people connector. Like, I don't necessarily sit down and like think about, should this person and that person, like, I'll be like, it'll just like come to me in my head, or I'll like do a little bit of like, oh, I know there was someone there. What was his name? Oh, right. That was his name. Okay, I'm there. But I feel very blessed that I have this huge network, because the more you have, the more people, just opportunities are endless. And that's why I stress so many times, like, connect with the right people, not just build your network, outwards, but build it kind of inwards, where you're connecting with the right people and building each one of those, as much as you can. I think right now is a great time to jump into the final four. I forgot to tell you at the beginning of the episode, but so now I'm going to surprise you. The final four is 4 questions that we ask every single guest on the show, and cool. kind of end it out that way. Sorry to cut it short, because I'd love to talk to you for hours, but I don't know if our listeners want to listen for hours. Maybe they do, but we'll have you back again another time. That's for sure. Hey, before we get to the final 4, I just want to tell you about Streamlined Podcasts. Okay. I could not have a podcast if I didn't work with Streamlined Podcasts. As simple as that. These guys are my go-to. They do all the editing of these audio pieces that you guys are hearing. And I really couldn't do anything without it. I literally tried to start a podcast for about a year, and it was just daunting to me to spend time writing show notes, to do the audio recording, editing, taking out the ums, the ahs, the spaces, everything. These guys make it sound so crisp, so clear at such an affordable rate. And for my listeners and my listeners only, you're gonna be thrilled. If you're ever thinking of starting a podcast or you have a podcast, check them out at streamlinepodcasts.com. Set up a time to speak with them and use promo code WEISS, WEISS, and you can get 20% off your first month if you do end up signing up with them. I guarantee you it's going to be worth your while. So check out Mark on the next episode. But the first question I have for you, Mark, is what was the worst job that you ever had?
Ooh, the worst job? That's a great question. I mean, I've had a lot of jobs I've learned a lot from and I've really enjoyed. Honestly, I don't think I could say. I mean, I've been a landscaper. I've managed cell phone stores. I've been in the mortgage business. I started a website called pumpkincoffee.com after reading the 4-Hour Work Week. I mean, I've done a lot. So I don't know. I've loved everything I've done. I've been lucky to be positioned to where I can go after things that excite me and I'm passionate about. So,
okay, we'll accept that. We'll accept that. It's all relative, but and I think that speaks to who you are and how you function, how your mindset is. And so that's great. We'll accept that. No worse job for Mark. Okay? Number two, the second, which is also going to be an extremely difficult question for you. And I preface because the question is, what is a book that you've read that has given you a paradigm shift? And I say it's difficult because knowing you read tons and tons and tons of books. I mean, I think last year, you had this challenge, you're reading a book a week or something like that, right?
I tried. Yeah, I tried.
Okay, so maybe one of them gave you a paradigm shift.
100%. And I'm going to throw up because it absolutely, everybody in the world should read Deep Work by Cal Newport. It blew my mind because I go to work and I push paper and I'm busy, but am I painting the Sistine Chapel on my back from morning to night, ignoring my phone and the Yona Weiss LinkedIn messages I get? Deep Work is, I think society should take a hiatus for 2 weeks, read that book, and then be like, what are we actually doing? Because it actually enlightened me that even companies want you to do shallow work because the deep work is where there's value and people pay for value. So a good example of that is if you are only adding value by posting people's properties on the internet for them, you're not going to get paid much money for that, right? You get paid the proportionate amount of money to the value that you provide. However, if you go to somebody and say, you know what, I think if we do X, Y, and Z, we can make you millions, you can charge whatever you want, right? So what is that deep work in your industry?
Okay, we're going to check that out, Deep Work. And that's going to be in the show notes, guys. Fourth question, Mark, is what does success mean to you?
So great question. And you and I are in the similar boat. My daughter asked me a few days ago, would you rather be a billionaire or have a great relationship with your kids?
Your daughter asked you that? That's awesome.
And I said, I think I've already answered that. So I love my family. Success to me is providing value, having a great reputation. I mean, you and I talked before, when we were bantering, but reputation's everything. I mean, that's it. You make one mistake or you do one selfish move, trust me, especially in society today, that proliferates. However, if your heart and soul is in the right place and you're doing great things, the sky is the limit. And it may be slow, but enjoy the journey. And success to me is just wrapping all that together, but maintaining a wonderful family and showing respect and love for your friends and community.
This is awesome. This was probably one of the best conversations we've had so far on the Weiss Advice. So if you agree with that, let me know. I agree with that because I said it. But it's always a pleasure talking to you, Mark. It's been wonderful, getting to dive a little bit deeper into some of the things going on right now in your business and in the world. And I just appreciate you coming on here.
Yona, I love you, man. You know it. So I can't wait to read your book. I can't wait to go to your first meetup where 180,000 people show up. I'm going to be on the front row. You're great for Earth, man. You can put that in the show notes because there's very few people that give without expectation. And Yona, I've been grateful to have you as a friend. So look forward to all the wonderful things you're doing.
That's awesome. Well, if I had a Twitter account, I would probably tweet that, but I'm not. But I don't on purpose.
For you. We didn't even talk about platforms and
no, we could go on and on, and we're definitely gonna have you back sometime. We just can't. I mean, I have like 3,000 people on my list like to talk with on the show, but you're obviously towards the top, so we'll float you back up again. Thank you again for joining us and to our audience. You guys are awesome. Thanks for spending the time, taking the time with us today. And remember, the best advice comes only when you ask. Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn, send me a DM, a connection request, Yona Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.